What's going on, guys? It's Brandon back here again today for another career video. Today I want to do a more serious career video, and that is the career of Steve Montador. Steve Montador was a defensive defenseman in the NHL. He was undrafted, and his life came to a tragic end in a time that I can remember, so that makes it even more the worst if you ask me. Steve Montador was undrafted. He ended up signing with Calgary. He played in the OHL for 5 years, and then played in the AHL for a couple of years before making his debut in 2002 with Calgary. He played 11 games, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. The offense was never there at the beginning. It would show up much later in his career. He did not make the playoffs that season, or did not play in the playoffs that season. I'm not sure if they made it. 2002-2003, he plays 50 games, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points. He does not play in the playoffs once again. But then 2003-2004 happens, and that's a big year for Calgary because they're an underdog. He plays 26 games during that season, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. 20 games played in the playoffs, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points as Calgary loses in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. People would argue the cup they should have won, and I'm really indifferent on it. I mean, at first I was really thought Calgary should have won, but then as I looked at the review, like how they deciphered the angles and stuff, I really don't know, so I'm not going to take a side on the matter. But as you can see, there's a lot of games missing in his career. That's because he had a lot of concussions, and that's something we'll get to later on as we talk about after his career. 2005, he plays in France in 2004-2005 during the lockout, but 2005-2006, he plays 7 games with Calgary, 1 goal, no assist, 1 point. He doesn't make the playoffs with Calgary because he's traded. On December 2nd, 2005, he's traded with Dustin Johnner, I think it's Johnner, for Christian Huselius. So Huselius going back the other way to Calgary. He was decent with Calgary. Montador, I'd say, would have his better seasons after he left Calgary. But, yeah. So the remainder of 2005-2006 with Florida, he plays 51 games, so a total of 58 games played that year, 1 goal, 5 assists, 6 points. There's no playoffs because Florida does not make the playoffs. 2006-2007, he plays 72 games, 1 goal, 8 assists, 9 points. So as you can see, the offensive numbers are starting to pick up, and once again, no playoffs. He will not make the playoffs at any point with Florida because Florida is awful at this time. 2007-2008, he plays 73 games with Florida, 8 goals, 58 goals. So he's got 1 goal each year up until, except he has 2 this year during the trade, but 1 with each section. And then he has 8 goals in 2007-2008, 15 assists, 23 points. As the offense shows up 100%. No playoffs for Florida, but it's Florida, and putting up those numbers in Florida isn't bad for a defensive defenseman. So he signs with Anaheim as a free agent after his contract comes to an end. And on March 4th, after he plays 65 games, has 4 goals, 16 assists, 20 points with the Ducks that year. The Ducks trade him. The Ducks do make the playoffs, but they still traded him on March 4th at the deadline for March 4th, 2009 for Petteri Nokinen. I think that's how you pronounce it. So he goes to... he would end up going to Boston in that trade, 1-for-1 with Petteri Nokinen. Nokinen going to Anaheim, never heard of him, so I don't know. But with that Boston that year, they're a number 1 seed in the East, but 13 games, no goals, 1 assist, 1 point, so 21 points, 2 consecutive 20-point seasons. 11 games played in the playoffs as Boston gets eliminated in Game 7 of the second round, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points in those games. He then signs with Buffalo for 2009-2010, 78 games, which is the most games he played during a season, 5 goals, 18 assists, 23 points, 6 games played in the playoffs, 1 goal, no assist, 1 point. So his offense shows up much later in his career than for most players. They would kind of show up probably around this area here, but no, they're peaking right around where the end of his career happens. 2010-2011, he plays 73 games still with the Sabres, 5 goals, 21 assists, 26 points for his most offensive productive season. 6 games played in the playoffs, no goals, 1 assist, 1 point. And then he signs a 1-year a deal with Chicago. So for 2011-2012, he plays 52 games with Chicago, 5 goals, 9 assists, 14 points. I remember him being a solid presence on the blue line that season when he was in the lineup. He did not play in the playoffs for Chicago that year, and that would end up being the end of his career. NHL career. He ended up playing in the AHL, and then he ends up going to the KHL for a season in 2013-14. So AHL in 12-13, KHL 13-14. And let's look at the totals of his career. 571 games played, 33 goals, most of which came in the back half, 98 assists, most of which came in the back half, and 137 points, most of which came in the back half. He had 4 20-point seasons right here, so that's pretty good for the end of his career. It's windy outside. In the playoffs, he ends up playing 43 games, 3 goals, 5 assists, 8 points. Not as offensively productive in the playoffs. And he was always known as a great locker room guy. Montador was a bottom 2, probably on Florida top 4, but mostly bottom 2, 7th defenseman. And because of that, those are the guys that are just great locker room guys. And as Daniel Carcillo wrote after his passing, he was someone who helped Carcillo. Maybe I'll do a career video on Carcillo soon. But he helped Daniel Carcillo overcome his substance abuse, and which was very important. And Carcillo was absolutely devastated after his passing. And as much of the hockey community was, as it turned a lot of eyes to what concussions can really do. Now going to his death, I don't want to highlight it as much because it's very sad. I remember when it happened. He was found dead on February 15th, 2015 in his home, 4 days after his son was born. So that's truly heartbreaking to hear. And he found it was his body after being analyzed. It was found he suffered from CTE, and which is caused by having that many concussions. He had a lot of concussions in his career, and it led to it eventually happening. So I'm going to call it here. I thought about wearing a Florida jersey, but I thought most of his years was... 1 second. I think my screen froze, and I should be on the screen, but for whatever reason, I'm just off the screen. So I'm going to call it here. Thank you guys so much for watching the career of Steve Montador. It's awful what happened after his career, but it taught us a lot about concussions. I'm not going to have you stare at a blank screen for now, so I'm going to thank you guys so much for watching, and I shall see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.